Hello everyone, it's Brooke from the St. Lawrence County Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much for joining us today for our February webinar. Happy February 1st. You didn't miss January. We don't do a webinar on January or in January or July due to the holidays and how they land. So we're happy to be back and have a large crowd with us today. So I'm glad you were able to tune in. As we wait for a couple more people to join us, I just wanted to point out on the left side in the please note box, you'll see a bold link there that says please respond to the polls. Many of you are doing that right now. Just under there is another box that says feedback and survey. If you don't mind clicking on that webinar feedback link, now opening it up, you might be able to fill out the first few questions and then just minimize that and you can respond to the rest of the questions after the webinar that pertain specifically to the presentation today. It's extremely helpful for us to know what you're thinking, what we can do better, and most importantly, if there are topics of interest that I can recruit speakers for, or if any of you are interested in doing a presentation in the future, would love to have you on board to do that. So if you can complete the polls and pull up that feedback form and get your information in there to start. We are just going to start in another minute here. Thanks. Hello again, everyone. This is Brooke from the St. Lawrence County Chamber of Commerce. Thanks for joining us. There are still people joining, but we are going to get moving. We try very hard to keep within the 1 hour so that you all can get back to the good work that you do. I just wanted to point out a couple of housekeeping things. You'll notice in the top of the presentation block, there's a little icon with 4 arrows. If you click that, it will make the presentation full screen for you so that you can see the details of Renee's presentation if you like. Sometimes you have to minimize that in order to ask questions, but that is an option there. I do want to encourage you all to ask questions throughout. You can do that through the Q&A or chat box, and it is anonymous, so ask any questions. No question too small or too silly. And Renee will pause throughout the presentation, and I will read off the questions to her. We'll also have some time at the end to answer questions. So please, whenever it comes to mind, type it in there. Even if Renee's going to cover it later, we can still feed out those questions. So we invite you to be interactive. I do want to note that this presentation is being recorded. All of our presentations are recorded, and they are available at slcchamber.org. So that's slcchamber.org. We have a number of wonderful presentations that we've been doing now almost 2 years. Is that right? So please enjoy those presentations as well. All right.
Great, thank you, Brooke.
We have about 20 people joining us today, so we're excited to have Renee here, and we do want to thank Laura Perry from Clarkson University for hosting the webinar on their platform, as well as St. Lawrence University for being one of our sponsors for this educational series for our members and businesses in St. Lawrence County. I'll now introduce our speaker. Renee Goodnow is a business advisor at the SUNY Canton Small Business Development Center. Many of you know it as the SBDC. The SBDC offers free business counseling ranging from drafting and implementing business plans to assisting existing businesses prepare to expand, explore e-commerce options, and lay out social media strategies. The SBDC recently recognized that many existing businesses in St. Lawrence County face an increase in operating costs along with stagnant sales. With many local businesses lacking the time and resources, the SBDC knew there was a need for training and individual counseling for growth through online mediums. Through a grant funded by the Alcoa Foundation, the SBDC is now working with local businesses to expand their customer base through e-commerce and social media marketing, and hired Renee to lead that initiative. Before joining the SBDC, Renee was the head of support operations at Wholeshare.com, recently acquired by Direct Eats. It's an e-commerce platform for organic, natural, and specialty food products. Renee has a BFA in Industrial Design from Rochester Institute of Technology and a Master's in Education in Educational Technology from SUNY Potsdam. So we're so thankful to have you here with us, Renee, and I'll let you take it away.
Great. Thanks, Brooke, for the introduction. And again, thank you, Laura, for putting this together. So let's get started. Let's skip over the slide with me on it and jump right into the social media jargon and definitions. So it looked like at the beginning we had a nice mix of beginner and intermediate people joining us, which is very cool. So some of these definitions for you experts out there, feel free to tune out for a second. But some of these definitions are really going to help us understand the content that we're going to talk about today. And there's also going to be a link in the resources to even more definitions if you want to check those out. I also noticed that there is a nice mix of people on the different platforms through the poll we did at the beginning. I also noticed there's not a lot of people on Google+, so that might be one that people jump on today. It's not super popular, but it's something that can help you in your search results on Google because it is owned by Google. So if you do anything today, check out Google+ for your business. So let's jump into social media jargon and definitions because there's a ton of terms related to social media. And these are just a few key ones that I pulled from Hootsuite online. So analytics, that's going to tell us what's happening, and it's going to really tell us how people got to you. So that's something that's really important to track. You'll often hear us talk about authenticity. So that sometimes people cover up their identity on social media and don't really express themselves, but it's really important for people to know you. So it's really important to be authentic and engage with your customers. When we talk about content curation, this is the process of sifting through the web to find the best and most relevant content for your audience. And then we'll talk about content management systems. So whether you're running a blog, marketing website, or a social media presence, a content management system is the backbone of your content marketing strategy. And we're also going to highlight some of those in the presentation. Content marketing. So this is a marketing strategy based on attracting and retaining customers through the creation and distribution of valuable content like videos, white papers, guides, and infographics, and that's stuff that you create. Conversions and social media marketing. A conversion is a positive action that is taken on a website by a visitor from social media. This action demonstrates the visitor is converting into a customer. There's a couple different conversion points along the way that you'll want to look at. Engagement. This refers to the acts of talking to, messaging, or otherwise interacting with people on social networks. It's a pretty broad term. And then engagement rate. This is the percentage of people who saw your social media post and actively engaged with it. They clicked, replied, favorited. It's a valuable metric to help determine the quality and success of your messaging. So I'm going to highlight in these definitions a couple of the different platforms that we're going to talk about and some features on them. So Facebook Live, that's a fairly new feature. I'm sure everybody's been seeing it pop up on their Facebook when someone jumps on. It allows you to stream live videos with friends, family, and followers. Followers to following ratio. This is one reason we asked that followers question at the beginning. This is the ratio of your social media followers to those you are following. So in an ideal world, you'd have more followers than you're following. Handle is just another way of your account name. Hashtag is a phrase with the number sign in front of it. It's a simple way to mark topics or social media messages. So if you hashtag something and someone searches that hashtag online, any items tagged with that hashtag are going to populate. Impressions, that's a number of times an ad, sponsored update, or promoted post is displayed. And then Instagram, that's an online photo sharing app. The last slide of social media jargon to get us started. It probably has the most stuff on it. So organic reach, that's going to describe the number of unique people who view your content. Paid reach, it's similar to organic, but it's paid for. Pinterest is a visual organizer for saving shared links to web pages. A post, when we talk about that, it's a Facebook status update or an item on a blog or platform. SEO is search engine optimization. It's a practice of increasing the organic visibility of a web page. So when I was talking about Google Plus and SEO, I was talking about that. Share is when content is reposted on a social media site through another user's channel. Social media marketing, I really like this definition from Hootsuite. It's the use of social media by marketers to increase brand awareness, identify key audiences, generate leads, and build meaningful relationships with customers. And then there's Twitter, and I think most of you are on that, so I won't go into that. So that's it for some social media jargon. If there's any questions related to that or any jargon that you guys have come across along the way that you want to ask me really quickly, we can do that.
Any questions from anybody? All right, I guess we're good to go along. And again, please type in your questions at any time, and no question is too silly or too small, and it will be anonymous, so feel free to ask.
Cool. And as I mentioned, there's an extensive list of all of these terms in the resources at the end of the slide. There's 226 definitions on there that can help you get started with some of these definitions. So it's important with social media to pick the right channel your audience is on, and from there create content they need. The first step in this process is knowing your target audience and where they are. There's some really great information out there on social demographics to help you pick which platform might be best for you. So I went and I grabbed a couple of examples, and these are just from Google searches on demographics on which platform users are on. I found these on Sprout Social. So when you're looking at these, you can say, all right, well, my target audience is, you know, they probably aren't super educated, so maybe I'll jump on Instagram. Or they're super educated and I want to jump on LinkedIn, and the gender is pretty equal. So there's some really good demographics out there for you to keep in mind. For each platform, it's also good to know which businesses are typically on there. So with Google Plus, as I mentioned, everyone's on there and it helps with your search results. With Pinterest, businesses in popular industries, usually appealing products and existing strong social media, are usually on Pinterest. With Yelp, Yelp is service-driven, and businesses with open storefronts and frequent business-to-customer interactions are usually on Yelp. Facebook, businesses with frequent customer interactions or companies with a strong industry presence are typically on Facebook. With Twitter, it's typically businesses with a strong brand and time to devote to customer service and conversations. And then with YouTube, it's businesses with time and energy to create tutorials, product reviews, and company features. LinkedIn, it's business owners and employees looking to network. And with Instagram, it's more creative businesses with an eye for design. So not only are you thinking about these demographics, you're thinking about which types of platforms businesses in your industry are already on. All right, as I mentioned a few times, you want to pick the right social media channel for your business for the best engagement. You don't want or need to be on every platform. You want to pick one or two that you can do really well to start out. Once you're on those platforms, you want to observe your customer. You want to know where, when, and how they're active on social media platforms. And then you want to reach out to those customers. You want to survey them. You want to maybe ask some questions in person if you have that opportunity, or you might want to check out some forums in your industry to kind of see what your customer is like. Check out what competitors are doing to see which content is getting engagement, likes, shares, thumbs up, like that. Facebook has a really great feature in their insights where you can follow competitors and see which of their posts are getting the most traction. Once you know what your customers want to consume, the conversation gets a lot easier. This really humanizes your small business and creates a relationship with your customer. Brooke, are there any questions that I can answer before I jump into content?
Doesn't look like it at this time, but again, we encourage people to type in if you have any questions.
Great. So with content, we want to provide value and show people what you do. You just don't want to tell them. So there's a couple different rules of thought. I call them rules, but they could be, they're blurred rules, I guess. The first one that's pretty popular is the rule of thirds. So this talks about social content, and the social content, you kind of take a step back to the old school style of promotional marketing, where 1/3 of what you publish can be of promotional nature as long as you have added value with the previous 2/3. Remember here that it's about promoting outcomes and not just features and benefits. For the second rule of third, this third is highlighting blogs, articles, videos, and content that the target audience will find engaging or useful. So this involves knowing what subjects and interests your social media connections have and are discussing. It will also ensure that you tap into conversations and topics that add value. So the last third, the personal part, this third is about getting to know your business, person, or brand. The more personal you can make it, the more effective it will be. Using 1/3 of content to help you get to know the characters behind the brand or in the business is significantly more engaging than bland corporate information. So this rule of thirds is really important in terms of scheduling out what type of content you're going to do. So if you're going to release content Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you have a great plan to select one of these areas on each of the days. The other rule that's kind of popular in the industry is the 80-20 rule. I pulled this from entrepreneur.com. It's also in the resources. 80% of your content should be information-based, not promotional. In the beginning, you may even shift to like a 95-5 split. No one is going to come to you because you posted something promotional, because no one's even following you yet. You have to get an audience that wants your content. As you grow followers, you can increase the promotions that you do. Because tone, culture, and customer engagement are so important, it's a great idea to put together a social media policy or a branding guide for those managing your platforms. This allows for consistent brand identity. So your social media policy might include items like acceptable behavior and language in your community, whether you want to be more casual, more proper, if you're going to use slangs. It's going to highlight the importance of treating people with respect. It's also going to talk about community standards. And it's also going to talk about whether or not you moderate comments and what type of criteria is used for removing them. This really allows employees to respond to feedback with a tone you've set in place and stay consistent with company culture, and to know when to delete inappropriate comments. You want to make it really simple and really easy for people to follow. In the resources, there's a social media governance. It's a site that lists various organizations' social media policies if you want to check them out to help you draft your own. Next, we're going to check out creating your actual social media plan. First, you want to start with your goals, objectives, strategies, and tactics, and then you want to go through that process to put together your budget, timeline, and measurables. So we've covered a few of these definitions already, so I'm going to bounce through these pretty quickly. But the next couple slides are really kind of like the headers to your plan and bullet points that will help you after this webinar to start outlining your actual plan. So the first step of your plan is to do the overview, outline exactly what you want to accomplish, and sit down with your team and talk about any barriers that might come up. And then from there, you want to list your goals, what you want to do. They should be achievable, but there should be a little bit of stretch there to work towards. And then you want to take into account considerations. Like we talked about earlier, identifying your target audience and what they value, checking out the competition, looking for opportunities where you can have unique, authentic content, and identifying any vulnerabilities that might stop you from achieving your goals. From there, we jump into the objectives, and you want to describe these steps you need to reach the goals, and they're typically measurable and quantifiable. They're realistic and time-based as well. And then there's your strategy. How are you going to reach your goals and objectives? This should be really clear and focused. And none of these have to be super long. It can be a 3-page outline for this whole thing. So don't get hung up on how long. It can be really simple. Next, we're going to look at tactics. I think this is the cool content stuff. Tactics are things you can do to achieve your objectives and support your overall goals. So those are the blogs that you're either going to create on your own or reach out to a blogger to curate for you. These are your updates, some promotional contests you might have, videos and photos, advertisements, hashtag campaigns. You can sit down with your team and kind of discuss, okay, what type of hashtag is going to be unique for us and bring people to our area, and then the digital graphics and website design as well. So tactics are really, really awesome, but they do come with a price that you need to keep in mind for your budget. So not only do each of these tactics potentially cost money, you're also looking at the cost of employee time, outside resources like a freelancer or agency, or if you find a software that you use to manage your content, that's another expense that you want to take into account. Then you want to put together your timeline. This should show how the various tactics and strategies work together. For your timeline, you want to include deadlines, durations, and who's responsible for the actual implementation of that task. There's some great task management tools out there. The ones I'm more familiar with are Asana and Trello. So those are team-based cloud tools where you can set up a calendar and put in the tasks and actually schedule them out to people. So with that plan that I just outlined, I'm going to see if anybody has any questions.
Renee, we have a couple of questions. One, and this might go back to or be more relevant if you have multiple people working on your social media. I'm trying to remember what you called it, but someone asked, should the business avoid making posts regarding politics, political positions or opinions, as well as other sometimes controversial opinions? Are there some cases where it's okay and others when it's not? Should this be defined in their social media plan or policy? Where does that fit into the plan?
Sure. I would definitely avoid politics. And I know as a business owner and an entrepreneur, a lot of people have strong opinions, but I would avoid them not only on your business page, but on your personal page. I would just kind of leave it out there. And I think it is a good idea to keep that in your social media policy, that you do avoid getting involved in politics, unless your business is politically based, but I don't know a great example of that off the top of my head. Yeah, I would put that in your policy that you would avoid politics.
Great, thank you. I think that's very important, especially in the current climate, but always, and I think there are a number of other things that can get political. That's good to just stay as neutral as possible. You never know what your customers' beliefs are. Another question, which you may touch on, we also had another webinar on this. Someone asked if you can talk more about building your brand on Facebook, what would that post look like? So I think when you talked about the different ratios, if you could just describe, and I don't know if you want to scroll back to that slide to talk more about what do you mean by posts that would be more building your brand?
So there's the different areas where you can build your brand, and like yourself as a person, you're part of that brand. So that would be the personal side. So those could be posts where maybe your family over the holidays cuts down their own Christmas tree. So maybe you post you guys dragging the tree through the snow, and you hashtag something like entrepreneur life, getting my tree last minute. That's kind of a way for people to connect with your brand on a personal level. And then in terms of content from industry leaders, so for us being in the SBDC, we post a lot of articles on Facebook from like Forbes and Entrepreneur.com and Inc. and articles like that. So that's the type of stuff. So it's kind of like for that kind of what you might aspire to for your brand in terms of finding industry leaders that you aspire to. That might be your media mentors. Um, and then, so I covered the business, personal, and then promotional is the last one. So there's some cool stuff you can do with promotions with your brand. Canva is a really nice app that you can use on Instagram, on Facebook to put together very graphically, like laid out well, aesthetically pleasing designs for ads. And those could be your typical promotions where like 15% off coupons if you like this, stuff like that. So those would be the three areas and how you could brand your company.
Great. Thank you, Renee. And one of the very first webinars that we did was finding a voice for your Facebook page. And so you can head over to SLC Chamber and then go to the archives that are on the right side and look for that one that really specifically gets into kind of creating a voice and a brand for your Facebook page. So that's a great resource as well. We have had a couple of more comments asking if these slides will be available. The presentation will be available as a recording in our archives after the presentation, so you will be able to come back and reference all of the materials here. The resources that Renee has listed at the end that she keeps talking about are a number of articles and things like that. And the webinar is a live format, so you will, through the recordings, you will be able to click on links to articles and things like that that Renee provides. So that will be available at slcchamber.org as well. So that, I think, if there are any other questions, please keep clicking them in. But for now, we're good to go, Renee.
Cool. Thanks, Brooke. I'm glad you mentioned voice too, because when you are a founder of a business and you do want the consistency with your messaging, that's where it gets really important to have that in your social media policy so you set the tone and the brand for your business. So it's really tough making time for all of this stuff, as I mentioned earlier. Everyone talks about how social media is free. It's not, because your time's not free. So these are some tips to kind of help you make time for it and do it as efficiently as possible. So research the social media platform that is going to be the most impactful for your business. This involves market research on your ideal customer. And as I mentioned earlier, it's also knowing which businesses are on which platform and why. Make sure your social media policy allows for employees to easily share content and list procedures for major issues that might pop up. That way it's not all on you. And then you want to create a monthly schedule for frequency and types of posts. That's where those management systems like Asana really come into place, because you can have shared team calendars that show which posts are coming up and who's responsible and what type of post it's going to be. Keep in mind holidays, what type of promotions you might do, which types of promotions you might not want to do. And then start with a shared document within your team for ideas on social media content. This is something you can do in Google Drive, where you share a doc and maybe you brainstorm ideas that way, or maybe you sit down with your team and actually brainstorm them there, and then use those ideas for that content that you're going to implement on your calendar. Check out features on channels you use that allow you to schedule posts, or research a content management system if you want to schedule many posts on different channels. One that I know that's pretty popular is the Hootsuite. I haven't used that one before just because I'm not on so many different channels, but if you're on more than 2 or 3 of these channels or platforms, you'll probably want to look into a content management system. They make it really easy to set up a post and have it go out on all those different platforms at the same time without having to get on each of those individual platforms to share your material. You want to monitor posts and respond to comments daily. That takes a lot of work, so that's where having your staff on the same page as you is going to be really important. You want to keep content fresh, and you don't want to typically repost. There's exceptions to this, though. There's the hashtag Throwback Thursday, which is a good example. On the resources slide at the end, the HubSpot blog is the ultimate guide to Throwback Thursdays and how to use the hashtag TBT in your marketing. It discusses applying items like this to your business to liven up the marketing campaigns. So if you had a really great holiday post that had some really good traction last season, you can definitely, for the upcoming season, do a throwback post and repost that with that hashtag. When thinking about post content, keep in mind days of reflection that you might not want to share promotional material. Also, if there's items like a natural disaster or a crisis that occurs, it's a really good idea to reschedule promotional posts so that you don't appear to be insensitive. We're going to look at some content tips now, unless there's any questions on making time. Cool. So content is anything you use to share your company's story and brand on and offline. You'll want to brainstorm ways you can help your customers. So this is one good first step. So sit down with your team, brainstorm ways that you can help customers, and then list all the questions your customers ask you on a regular basis and prepare short answers for each of those questions. Take each of those questions and decide which social media channels they work best on and what type of post you're going to send out that's going to answer those questions. So you're creating material that your customers need and want. For example, if your business is a cookie decorating business and customers frequently ask about a particular sugar cookie icing design, why not create a quick YouTube video showing the technique or jump on Facebook Live to show finishing touches on a fresh batch? So some ideas to help you bring your content up a notch. Think about investing in a tripod for your iPhone if that's how you're going to take pictures. So you have a steady hand taking the best picture you can take with that device. Think about an external mic so you have really good sound if you're doing podcasts or if you're doing YouTube videos. Think about that in terms of upping your quality. And speaking of quality, you want quality photos and videos. Pay attention to lighting. You also might consider hiring a professional photographer or a videographer to do a shoot with you and have them sit down and do a couple different setups so that you can use that professional material in your marketing mix. And post items that solve people's problems, which was one of the first ones I talked about in terms of brainstorming questions. If you're ever stuck on staging a product photo or figuring out the lighting for a product, jump on Pinterest and search something related to your subject matter. This should give you some really good examples. There might be a really cool framing technique they use or a setup that you can use for inspiration. Or if you're trying to be artsy on Instagram, but you're not really sure how to stage your food, jump on Pinterest and get some ideas there. There's a link in the resources called Click It Up a Notch that has some really good examples on framing that you can look at to kind of inspire you to have those cooler images. And remember the rule of thirds: share social content from your industry leaders or like-minded businesses. It also creates an opportunity for those leaders to link back to you. This stuff you're not creating it, so it's really easy to get your hands on. You want to make sure that you read through it though and preview it. You don't want to just post it. You want to vet it first before you get that out there. So we all like simple, and we want to start there. On all of these platforms, you just want to show what you do. You want to share the culture of your company, your brand, and everything through these posts. Don't focus on quantity. You really want to focus on quality and relevant content for your target market. Before you share something, ask yourself, is this valuable, or am I sharing just to share? What type of value does it have for my customers? Learn from past initiatives. So use things like your Facebook insights to see which past initiatives were successful, and repeat things from those. If it was a video that got some really good traction, what type of video was it? Did you hashtag it? How many hashtags you use? Test the waters there. And also be prepared to adapt if something isn't going well. But be and able to, in order to do that, you have to be able to track it along the way. And I don't know if anybody picked up on this, but it's all about the relationship. You have to remember to thank folks for sharing your content, and you want to repost items for folks that have shared your content in the past. It builds a really nice network for you online. You want to focus on building a long-term relationship and not hard selling with aggressive pop-ups or buy this, buy now. It's all about relationship building and them getting to know you. Test and adapt your content. For example, which times you're getting the best traction and what type of post. Is it video? Is it infographics? Did you post it at 6 a.m. or 8 p.m.? Which times are people who like you actually online? And Facebook does some cool stuff with their insights where you can actually see when most of your followers are online, and that's when you want to post content to them. So I'm going to open it up for some Q&A.
Great. Thank you, Renee. We do have a couple questions and certainly encourage everyone else to type in any thoughts you have at this point. One of the questions you've mentioned a few times, reposting information from other sources. So what is the best way or places to find industry or like-minded content sources? Would it be just by searching the internet, or is there a way through different social media platforms to use keywords to find people in your industry? And also, is there any legal issue with posting other people's content?
Sure. As long as you're sharing the source, you're fine. So when you're posting a link from Inc.com, you're sharing that exact link. You're not copy and pasting the article, you're sharing the actual link. So that's where you're just citing the source for that. And now that I answered that question, I forgot what the first one was.
Where do you find those kind of partner resource people in your industry? What are some good ways to find other folks on social media or on the internet that are working in your industry?
Okay, so there's a couple different ways. So on Instagram, when you find, so say you find a post that you really like and you click on it, you can check and see who they're following, and that's one way to see, to kind of find maybe lesser known or popular people in the industries. And then on Facebook, there's some different ways. You can see what type of people are liking certain things, and then check out their pages. So that's where you're kind of observing your customers to see what else your customers are checking out. And then in the insights, there's also a couple different features where it will pop up. I can't even remember what it's called. It will pop up with just things that you might be interested in. So a lot of those different platforms actually make recommendations for you to check out. I do a lot of, if I'm doing market research on something, I'll Google it and then I'll look at the person, the resources at the end of the article to see where they found their content, and I'll usually go and check those out as well. There's some, I think like Inc. might do this when you get to the end of an article. Sometimes they'll suggest other articles and sometimes they'll be from other areas, but that's one way. So you have to do a little bit of digging. But it's kind of checking out what other people are viewing, doing some good searches that way.
Great. And I know one of our other presentations on Facebook that got into more Facebook marketing, Fayori, the presenter from Three Bears Gluten-Free Bakery in Potsdam, mentioned that there's also that part which you just mentioned in Insights on Facebook where you can actually track your competitors too to keep an eye on what they're doing as well. So that's helpful too.
Yeah, it's pretty neat because you can see which posts they have that have the most traction, and you can repost those.
Yeah, and that's a good kind of follow-up question. Is it better for you, say you find an article on Forbes.com, is it better for you to see if Forbes has posted it and then share it from their social media account, Facebook, for example, share it on your page that way rather than linking it from their website? Is there any benefit to doing it either way if you have the option?
I'm not totally sure. I know, like if you share it through the Facebook, you might get some good traction sharing something that's so popular. Um, and then, but it's kind of interesting because sometimes I don't like what that link looks like, and so I'll go directly to the website and not even think about it. But if it's good content, you shouldn't. I'm thinking maybe sharing it from Facebook, but I'm not totally sure. But if it's good content, people are going to crave it and hopefully get to it.
Okay,
That's a
and I
good
guess
question, though.
if you share it from their Facebook page, at least they'll know that you're paying attention. They might like your page and start to follow you and form a relationship, possibly that way.
That's a
Great.
good
All
point.
right. We have another question. If you are the only one updating social media along with all the other things you do running a small business, how much time a day, week should you be spending on social media?
I guess it depends on how quick you are at finding content and creating the content and how much, I mean, sometimes it does come down to a budget. And if you have money in your budget to have people create the content for you and then you're just sending it out, um, I would say you could probably sit down at the beginning of a week and probably schedule stuff for 2 hours and find some good content that way. And then throughout the week, kind of monitor and keep tabs on your posts. Each business is a little bit different though, and it kind of depends too on how many followers you have and if you're doing a promotion that week, if you have a big push. So it might range, but at least a couple hours every week scheduling stuff out.
Okay. And I suppose if they put together a social media plan, they'd have a good sense of where that fits into their marketing mix and how much budget and time they want to allocate to social media versus other marketing opportunities. So again, it really is individual. And just to follow up on that, and several people asked about if the slides are available. Renee is available in person at SUNY Canton SBDC for free advising. So certainly get in touch with her, and she'll share her information in a second too. But utilize her as a resource and the other folks at the SBDC as well.
Yeah, it's a really great resource. All of our counseling services are free. And also on our Facebook page, I try to keep it updated with business related articles, blogs, and client updates. So if you want to check that out, our handle's at Canton SBDC on Facebook.
Great. Are there any other questions? Sounds good. And I think along with the question of time, it's important to know that you can schedule posts in the future. So even if you allot, Mondays from 10 to noon to do your social media, you can schedule posts for Wednesday afternoon and Friday morning and do it that way so that you're able to focus on it one space of time, but it is benefiting your followers throughout the week. And those are really handy tools I've found too.
Yeah, and planning really, having that calendar and having a plan in place really does make it a lot quicker. I've worked with quite a few businesses who have a busy season. So if they know from January to February, they're going to be kind of low, but things are going to pick up in the spring, they'll spend those 2 months creating content and creating that schedule so that they're ready to go and everything's in place for them.
Great. Do you want to just show us your resources there, Renee, and maybe go through quickly what people might find there?
Sure. Like I talked about, there's the rule of thirds in there. There's a couple of, I mean, if you Google a social media plan, there's some cool resources out there. So a couple of those are kind of some quick steps to your social media plan. Click it up a notch. That was just an example to show you that there are resources out there to help you make your content better. If you don't feel super comfortable taking a picture, check out what other people are doing and try to mimic their style. So having a social media mentor and kind of checking out what they're doing and copying it while staying authentic is important. There's a social media governance where you can see other people's policies. Social media demographics, that's for people, so if they know their target market, they can kind of know which platform they might want to jump on. And then there's another rule of thirds, the social media glossary. So that's a ton of definitions, and they're pretty, some of them are pretty long, but it's pretty helpful to kind of understand the industry jargon. The Ultimate Guide to Throwback Thursdays, I thought that was pretty fun for people to think about content. You literally could have content created for one day every week already for you. And then those are the task management tools I talked about, Asana and Trello, and then Hootsuite's a content management site for people to schedule stuff out. And there's tons of other ones out there. There's also some that you could pay for that have more bells and whistles that are pretty cool.
Great, a lot of great information. And Renee, can you provide them with how to get in touch with you?
Sure. You can call our office anytime. It's 315-386-7312. Or you can email me directly at goodnowr@canton.edu. It's GOODNOWR@canton.edu. Or you can check us out on Facebook at our handle, Canton SBDC. You can message us, you can leave a note, you can like an article, you can share an article, and maybe I'll share one of yours. So there's a chance for interaction there too.
Wonderful. All right, we're wrapping it up. If people can just take a minute to fill out that survey. Hopefully you opened it up. We'll get it back on the screen here for you, that webinar feedback. We appreciate your feedback very much. That's how we've been continuing this program and have had probably close to 200 people tune in, which lets us know this is important, whether it's live or through the recording. So definitely check out slcchamber.org for the archives. Up next month, we do have our first Wednesday webinar, which is March 1st, again at noon. And we'll have Steve Barr from the Small Business Administration, the SBA, not to be confused with the SBDC, and he'll be talking about the different certification programs for women-owned businesses, appropriate for March, and we'll take you through the different opportunities, both state and federal certifications, and the opportunities, eligibility, and whether or not it's beneficial for you and your company. So whether you are a woman owning your business or know of someone, or you have a partnership where the woman is the lead but it's not actually structured that way, you'll get some good information on what the benefits are for that and if you are eligible. So we hope you will join us for that, and we'll have the registration link up probably within the next week, and you can get that through our electronic bulletin that goes out weekly, and also on our Facebook page. So if you are not, if you're not receiving our emailed bulletins weekly, you can put in the chat box just your email. We can add you to that so that you stay informed. Yes, someone asked when will this webinar be posted? We usually get it up by the following Monday, so you can check back there. We'll also link it to the Facebook event if you got onto this that way. So just keep checking back on SLC Chamber, and again, it's on the right side, the right column for webinar archives. I just want to thank Renee again for taking the time to put together this valuable information. I hope you will all schedule a meeting with her. You do not need to be the business owner to make the appointment. You can be anybody who wants to do this work or is charged to do this work for your company. And 386-7312. You can find her. And we thank Laura Perry and Clarkson University for hosting the webinar series on their platform, and for St. Lawrence University, who has sponsored this educational opportunity for our businesses. So thank you again. Please do fill out that feedback, and we look forward to seeing you or hearing you or being here with you online next month, March 1st, for Women-Owned Business Information. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much.